Hi folks, you're with today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about universities in the Western world and what incentive, if any, they have to raise educational standards. Now, as a backstory, 40, 50 years ago, a very small number of kids would make it into university. Most kids were going into what were called community colleges, technical colleges, those sorts of things. And it was only the very brightest kids that would go to university. Now, whether they were studying science or physics or classical Greek, it didn't really matter, but it was the brightest kids that would go to university. Now, there was always be exceptions. The very wealthy and well-connected of society always wanted their kids to go to prestigious universities. So in Australia, it's called the Sandstone Universities, and in the United States, the Ivy League, and so on. So the rich people would always get their kids in. They'd make donations, they'd pull strings, they do that sort of stuff. But the amount of people who had that sort of wealth was one in every 300 or 400 people. So less than that, even one in every 500. So it wasn't a big deal because there were so few people who had that level of wealth and influence to buy their dumbass kids away into university. So for the most part, it was the brightest kids. Certainly when I was looking to go to graduate to university, there was out of the kids that started high school, maybe 3%, if even that, went on to university. It's quite rigorous. I mean, for the kids who were struggling as students and they maybe got just missed to pass or got a bare pass, something like that, they would typically have to show cause for why they weren't performing well as a student. And they were pretty much by university administrations invited to leave. So, and there were kids who were there on scholarships, bright kids from poorer families, that sort of stuff. But it was for bright kids, and there was a strictly pass or fail. For example, in medicine, you had to get, I think it was a minimum of 76% or between 75 and 80% in the exam, just to be able to get into the courses in medicine. And this was, again, a strictly pass or fail exam. So, and then once you got there, the rigor got even worse. And quite a few kids, certainly that I knew, were saying, wow, this is way tougher than I thought it was. You really have to work. You really have to hit the books and study hard and all that sort of thing. For some kids, they couldn't hack it. Other kids, they treated it as a bit of a sort of a social scene, and they didn't give it the seriousness that it merited. But they were bright kids who had graduated, based on merit. Now that's all changed today, and governments, particularly once the globalists took control, have changed the whole concept of education. They're putting them through university to indoctrinate, not to educate now. But the amount of kids they want to get through. So in Australia, just as a case in point, and other Western countries, the government's actually setting budgets. Like the communist central committees used to plan the economy and every aspect of it and every aspect of people's lives. They're doing that. So in Australia, they're budgeting and saying, okay, out of every 100 kids that starts high school, first year high school, they want 60 plus of those kids to go to university, not college or community college, but to university, which used to be the hallowed halls of higher learning for the brightest kids, but no longer. So you can't say that 60% plus of all students that start high school are suddenly university material. They're not, far from it. I don't think the numbers have changed much from the 30, 40, 50 years ago. I think there's about the same amount of kids that were bright now as were bright then, maybe a little bit less given educational standards have fallen, but I'd say that 3% would be a top end. I mean, let's be generous and say 5% even, but still, if the brightest kids were even the top 5%, then 60% going to university, or more than 60%. You've got to be kidding me. Now, there's a certain difference today. The government now guarantees payment to the university. So dumbass kids that wouldn't make it past junior high school, and certainly wouldn't make it into senior high school or graduate senior high school, and wouldn't come within a million miles of graduating to university. Those kids are now being passed through to university, and they're taking on considerable debts to study gender studies or peace studies or something like that, and they're taking on a big debt, but the government is now guaranteeing that debt. So in Australia, at least, if these kids can go, mostly girls, in fact nearly all girls, if they can go for 10 years and have a job that doesn't meet the minimum threshold required before you start paying your student loan back, if they manage to come under that income threshold for 10 years in a row, then the government effectively writes off the debt and pays it for them. Now, this would mean that at the age of 31, 32, they're starting their lives. So the idea of owning property or they're getting married, having a family, these sorts of things, and being financially in a position to give the kids some sort of security, and that's really lost. But if that's when you're starting out, just beginning to join the workforce, then that's too late in my view. So they're forcing all these kids to go into university. Now, when I say forcing, I don't mean that literally, but they're inviting these kids. Hey, if you want a good job, you've got to have a degree. Any degree will do. Anything. It can be in ass wiping or street sweeping. I mean, it doesn't matter. But given that everything now has a degree or a certificate attached to it, anything at all, any job or role, or now has a certification. We live in a certification age. You don't need to know anything about the job or know what to do or how to do it or anything about it, but you need certification, and that's a big issue now. So all these kids go to university to study bullshit courses. Now, there's been an absolute explosion in courses to suit dumb kids. The idea of the classical Greek and the physics and the maths, the chemistry, those sorts of things, the science. These dumbass kids couldn't do that. So they've had to invent this insane array of courses. And if there was 100 university courses in 1975, for example, there'd be over 1,000 today, which will give you well over 1,000 today, which will give you an example to how many new university courses they had to create just to cater for all these dumbass kids coming through. African American music studies. I mean, for fuck's sake, there's a degree in that. I mean, you're kidding me, yeah? And they take on a debt of $50,000-$60,000 to study that bullshit. So there's all these dumbass kids getting through, but the Western governments are really pushing this and really want us to push as many kids through the university system. But what this means is that because of all these dumbed-down kids there and the dumbed-down courses, and indeed the dumbed-down academics, I mean, some of the academics I've met, seriously, I mean, they're so fucking stupid, it's unreal. So all that has created this vast revenue source for the universities. Now, if you look at, say, the salary of the dean or deputy dean of a university, like the head guy and the deputy head person, then their salaries have increased by over 1,000% in the last 20 odd years. So because they pay so well and because they're now so prestigious, they're now dumping grounds for political mates and hacks and goons and globalist stooges and so on. So it isn't people that have got anything to add to the educational scene. They're just pure political hacks and apparatchiks and so on that are being rewarded for whatever they're doing. So all these high salaries that the university heavies are now getting paid has had the opposite effect to the one you'd want. that these high salaries should attract the very best and brightest minds, academic minds, all across the Western world. But the reverse has occurred. Not there aren't one or two in there are, but they've been bought off as globalist flunkies anyway. But what it's created now, it's just a cesspool of fucking patronage of again, people with political connections who are getting these prestigious, well-paid jobs in the university system. Now, there's another side of it too, that the attracting overseas students from China and India and so on. These countries are very corrupt. They're for whatever commitment they may have to and have a good they may or may not be in swatting up for exams and that type of thing. They're people that very much take the view that we've paid the fee to get the degree. We haven't paid the fee to get an education. We've paid it to get a fucking degree. We want a prestigious bit of paper and a prestigious degree, and that's what the fuck we're paying for. So if you think you're going to fail my kids, then you've got another fucking thing coming, buddy. Western University, buddy. You're going to give me that. You're going to give my kid that fucking degree, and that's it. Now I'll pay you more if you want, but you're going to give me the fucking degree. And if my kid goofs off and parties and snorts white powder and nightclubs around nonstop, then that's too bad. But you're going to give me the fucking degree. And if you want another a couple of $100,000, we'll sort it. We'll do it. But the degree you will give us. So there's no incentive for the university, whether it be with overseas students or local students or for any students for that matter, to actually say, well, we're going to give you a rigorous education. When you come out at the end of this university course, you will have demonstrated that you are amongst the best and brightest to practice in this particular field of study, again, be it physics or whatever it might be. So, but that's gone. Now, I don't doubt there are, in engineering, I don't doubt that there are bright kids, but really it's only straight white males are being held to any sort of an educational standard. Everyone else is given a dispensation of one sort or another. It's only straight white males, usually the middle class, where their folks aren't well connected and they aren't rich and they can't afford to cut any deals and breaks for their kids, so that they're just not in that position. The kids have to go by purely on their own merit as bright, capable students, and they're the only ones. They're the only ones that are left. So everything else around them, the foreign students, not that there aren't some bright foreign students, by the way, there are, but the foreign students, the low IQ flunkies that are being pushed through senior high school into the university and so on. So there's no incentive for the unit, whichever way the university looks, whichever direction you go, there's no incentive. Why would all these political hack apparatchiks who are getting paid, millions of dollars in the executive level of the university administration, they don't want anything to change. They're on a fucking serious gravy train. So they don't want it to change. All the low IQ black lesbians that are getting passed through to university to be gifted a degree, then they don't really want it to change, because they're now, hey, I'm just as good as Whitey. I'm just as good as Whitey. I've got a degree from this university. Suck on that, you damn fascist Nazi Hitler. So they don't want anything to change. The overseas students that have got rich parents that are paying for things. It's not the poor kids who are coming here. Who've got the rich parents that are coughing the cash. They don't want anything to change. Why the fuck do they want a rigorous education? They're here to party and chase all the white chicks. And the parents can cough the cash to make sure that they get that bit of paper at the end of it. So no one, there's not incentive anywhere, be it the university, be it... Now, in order to address the issue and return to a rigorous education, a lot of vested interests are going to suffer. They would lose the overseas student market. As I'm talking to some Chinese heavies a while ago. They said, hey, if the Australian university won't give me what I want, the prestigious degree for the kid, then I'll go to the US or Canada or Britain or something. There'll be somewhere in the West that will give my kid that degree. And if I have to pay extra for it, fine. But that's what I want to do. And that's what I want for my kid. And if the Australian university won't do it, fuck them. I'll go somewhere else. So there's nobody wherever you go, there's no one who has any interest in turning the education back into a rigorous quality education. Nobody. No. And I think while it's in that situation, then we're going to have these low quality students en masse. Huge numbers of them being churned through the university system, and all they learn is how evil white people are, and how all white people are Hitler and this sort of stuff. That's the only thing they'll end up with, climate change issues and the like. And that's very sad, because a rigorous education, regardless of the subject, by the way, it could be anything. It could be African American music studies, but a rigorous education requires people of higher intellect, people who are committed to hard work, swatting it up, hitting the books, attending the lectures, doing the heavy lifting, busting their ass. So it almost doesn't matter the discipline. I mean, I wouldn't recommend African American music studies as a university subject, by the way. If your community college or something, fine. But if they're for people who are prepared to put in the work of higher intellect, then rigor is the issue, and the West to stop producing people of rigor. Now they're still out there, but not in the numbers I think they once were. And I think that's a tragedy. But I see no incentive for the educational sector to change. It's dumbed itself down and made itself dependent on this easy bullshit money, and no one's in a position or wants to change that. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.